Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? It's the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Coach Kenny Simpson. Morning, Coach.
Good morning, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. You are now post-Gun Tea clinics in the spring of 2025. That's got to feel good.
It does. I mean, it does. It's always fun to talk football, but and I'm gonna miss it. I mean, I really do enjoy getting to connect. Got to see you in person a couple times this year, and met a lot of really cool people. I mean, you got to go to just two of them, and you saw. I mean, there's really neat people across the country that are doing really good things, and it's always cool to kind of have a chance to maybe play a small part in helping them in their journey. So we had ended up with over 1,200 coaches that joined us on our 9 different sites of the Gun Tea clinics, and I'm already kind of getting stuff set for next year. And we're going to try to do it again, but now my attention is moving towards spring football, and then of course summer. We have a couple of installs, Coach Gould and myself, and bring my defensive coordinator to a couple. I'm excited about getting to travel with them a little bit. Of course, work with our own kids and kind of get ready for what's coming. So I think most guys, depending on where you live, because spring ball isn't everywhere, but if you're in an area that has it, here it comes. If you're not, it's right around the corner.
Y'all are doing a traveling team camp this year, right? How's that?
Yeah,
that's not your first year either, right?
No, we do several camps with our own team, and then I thought, what better way to kind of combine, my side business, working the Gun Tea offense with my own team, 2 things I really love. So we actually go to Oakville High School in St. Louis, and then we have about 6 to 8. We can't do more than that, but 6 to 8 Gun Tea schools. We compete in a team camp and share ideas, and our kids get to meet kids from all across. I think there's 3 or 4 states that generally will show up at that. Right. So it's really, really a cool deal. Our kids love it. Try to get their day early. We take them to Six Flags or a Cardinal game, and then they play ball Friday, get to connect with different coaches and players and people. And that's one of the things our kids really look forward to. We kind of end our summer with that, and then we get ready for fall camp.
Is that too late in the year to see a Battlehawks, or was that UFL still going around then, or are they usually done?
Man, I haven't really looked. I think it'd probably be worth looking at. We usually do it that last weekend in July, right? July 24th, 25th, kind of in that world. So one year we took them to a Cardinal game. Last year we did Six Flags, and the kids really enjoyed that. So my bet is we'll probably do that again.
Six Flags is always a good answer, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they got a water park there too. The kids like that stuff.
I bet. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at the clinics this year. It was really good. Already working with a few coaches out of those, so it helped me grow what I'm trying to do. So that was a lot of fun, and then just getting to speak and organize your thoughts. I think that's a heck of a way to grow as a coach, is put what you think you're teaching kids on paper and make it organized, and I think you can quickly realize like some of the stuff pairs together better than others, or we do a lot.
Well, like we're doing a podcast here, or if you're doing anything where you're in front of coaches, coaches are smart dudes. So if you get up there and you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to see right through that. So I think I'd encourage every coach, even if you're just giving a clinic for free on YouTube, I think there's value in forcing yourself to teach. The more you do that, the better you're going to be at whatever subject it is you're trying to learn. And that's, to me, I think I've grown more as a coach the last 5 years in my entire career, because I understand that microscope's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that forces me to be really detail-oriented in what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome, Coach. Before I forget, let's knock out this quote of the week, and then we'll jump into some ads.
Yeah, I might have chosen the world's longest quote, but we're going to roll with it because I think it kind of fits on what we have a lot of our theme on. So it says, in sport, which is unknown, So I don't know who made this quote. We're just going to say it. Somebody pretty smart. It says, in sports, efficiency isn't just about speed or strength. It's about how you use what you have. The most efficient athletes aren't those who always work the hardest, but they are those who work the smartest. They know what energy conservation, strategic thinking, and precision in every move can make the difference between winning and losing. It's about making every action count, every step deliberate, every breath purposeful. In a marathon of competition, those who master efficiency find themselves not just crossing the finish line, but doing so ready for the next challenge. I don't know if every part of that quote is going to apply to everything, because I do think you need to work hard. I think there's value in that. But working hard and running the wrong direction ain't going to win you a lot of games. It's all about understanding how to maximize what you have and then working that way. So that's kind of the goal. So I hope that was a good quote. See you there, Ben. We got our first comment here, Daniel. I can see.
Hey, let's go.
Coach, appreciate you. Your first comment on the live one here. So if you guys are listening to this on a recording, recognize that we do put this out live also. Generally, we go Tuesday mornings at 8:30 Central Time.
There you go. Appreciate you, Coach, for hollering at us, man. That is a guy that is jumping into his first year as a head coach here, younger coach. So that should be a fun one to watch. Excited for him and what he's got going on. Appreciate the quote, Coach. Let's real quick. If you can tell us how we can simplify this for our staff and for our athletes. We're doing a little bit different today. Try this little banner out. Look at that. So we'll still be putting a sports ad in here digitally.
Nice.
But this will give me a place to cut it, and then I'll be able to know. So if you haven't reached over to Ace Sports yet, acesports.com, you can call Mark or Ryan or the guys. Let them hook you up with a video board, and then we will put the rest of the ads in here digitally. Let's jump straight in the next part here, Coach, and that's going to be, we talked about the clinics are over. Your Gun T 6.0 book's doing really well. It seemed like it sold out both places we went, right? Like it was a good sell.
Yeah, generally that's how new stuff's going to go. We've got the Gun T 6.0. We have the Play Caller's Guide. Those have done really, really well. They're the most recent books. If you're watching this off of a recording, we should have our newest 3-4 defensive book out. I've been getting hit up a lot. Hey, Coach, we need some more defensive materials. My defensive coordinator, I think, is phenomenal. So he's taken what we did in the 3-4, 4 or 5 years ago, and now we have the ability to be so multiple that I wouldn't have even believed it 5 years ago with our same terminology. So we put out a book kind of documenting how we now can get into all these different fronts with our kids, different coverages we run. We still obviously focus on the fundamentals, but now we've got some options. And so that book will be out a week from today. If you're listening to the recording, it probably is already out. It's the 3-4 Swarm Volume 2 over at fbcoachsimpson.com.
There you go. If you can track the banner at the bottom, fbcoachsimpson.com/downloads. You get a lot of those books there, a lot of other stuff that Coach is putting out for you guys. So go check that out. Sweet. And let's don't forget the Patreon. If you aren't already signed up for Patreon, for me, patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. I've recently added the new youth football consult tier there. So if you can jump into that, had a lot of good questions about it these last couple weeks. So it's a good place to kind of get started there. Jump in, patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. Headsets Magazine is the last one we'll hit here for the ads. And, we have just a couple more months of that left here this year. But there are, 4 years of magazines over at fbcoachsimpson.com/headsets. So you can go check that out. If you want to write, these are articles that are written by coaches for other coaches to read and learn from. So, it's reach out to Kenny or I, or Kenny's the guy. Talk to Kenny, but he'll get your articles over to Jamie so she can proofread them. She's like really the mastermind with all the magazine articles. But no matter what you want to talk about, you can talk about scheme, you can talk about relationships, you can talk. There's a ton of culture is a big buzzword right now. So if you want to talk culture, you can go do that. Just write it up, let Kenny know. He'll get his wife to put it in the article. All right, Coach, let's get into question one here. So this morning, what we're talking about is, mistakes that coaches make. So obviously, it doesn't matter how good you do. Like we're going to make mistakes as well, right? Like that's all of us. And it's not all in the same place. I think we have to look at the full career of a coach. We have guaranteed 10 games on the field. So some of our mistakes are going to be on the field, but a lot of them are going to be off the field as well, right? How we handle ourselves in the media or with other coaches, with our administration, all super big conversations. So I guess, Coach, why don't you start us off there talking about mistakes that coaches can make? I think you're muted here, Coach Simpson.
Yeah, you could write a whole book. I literally wrote just 10 mistakes that I made in a book. And so I think it's one of those topics that's tough to address, because coaches were taught to point out the flaws of others and fix the flaws of others. We're not always taught to look within. And that can be difficult. That can be difficult. I think that's kind of our personality, it's easier to see other people's issues than our own issues. And so when I go through these, I don't want people to think, well, Coach, he must not do any of these. Well, I probably have done all of these. That's why I know it was a mistake.
Right.
And so that's what I want to kind of make sure the tone of our episode is not about blaming others and saying we haven't done this stuff. I probably have done all of this stuff. So we'll start off with kind of 3 different ways here. And I know, Daniel, you kind of sectioned it in 3, so I'm going to just roll with that. So we'll start off with the first one, which are on the field issues. And there's a lot of issues you can have as a coach on the field, a ton of issues you can have as a coach on the field. But generally, the biggest issue is not preparing enough. I think that's probably the biggest issue most coaches, including myself, have, is when we struggle on the field, you really could backtrace that to not preparing enough off of the field. We weren't prepared enough to go on the field. And so you can usually signs that this is a problem with you, or your practices are longer than they should be. You're dragging practices on because you don't really know what to do. So you're having to figure out things on the spot, or you're not efficient enough in your drills. So the drills take longer to explain and longer to prepare. And you have longer transition times because you're not exactly organized in that world. So that's probably the number one issue in my mind on that. The second ones you see on the field usually deal with, blaming other people. If you are the head coach or you have any authority, whether you're a position coach and it's your players, whether you're a coordinator and it's your assistants, whether you're the head coach and it's whatever, ultimately it's you. So you can blame others, and at some point, it might be partially their fault or mainly their fault, but you are responsible for them. So you've got to figure out a way to make sure that everybody's on the same page. That falls to you. So pushing it to others doesn't work. You see that all the time, where some head coach or some coach will be talking about, hey, we did X, Y, and Z, and points out stats where they're successful. If you lost, nobody cares about your stats. Nobody does. They care about winning and losing. So you have to get the whole program on the same playing field. So I understand, you are responsible for all that. Third one I put down is getting frustrated. Really easy to get frustrated. Everybody gets frustrated. How do you respond when you are frustrated? And so just kind of get used to how are you going to handle that stuff, which to me, what you don't want to start having happen is the negativity that will creep in with that. Right. I get upset, so now I'm negative. And then when you react negatively, there's only usually 2 responses. Either you're going to be really angry and lose your temper, blow up, do some things that way, or worse than that is where you start settling into we can't do it. It's just we don't have enough players. We are injured. When you start making those excuses, you're not in a good place. So you need to be careful of those types of things. I put not associating practice in the game, not running drills in practice that are going to translate into the game. That's a big mistake a lot of people make, is this is a great drill, but doesn't really fit our kids. And so we're not really teaching anything in practice that's going to help us improve what's happening during the game. So make sure that that stuff's taken care of. And finally, I put down there not having a good scheme. I think that could be the number one issue for a lot of people, but you watch people play. I don't care what your scheme is. We run the gun tee. We run the 3-4. We believe in those. We've worked hard to make those have answers and to fit our kids. You could run whatever, but you need to make sure that you are a master of your craft. And jumping from one to another, you're probably not going to get that way. Or trying to just copy what someone else does without really understanding why they do it and how they do it, you're probably not going to be successful. So scheme can be a lot of things, but you can't be unsound in what you do. Like, you have to know the answers for the problems, the adjustments you're going to have to make, how people are going to attack you, and what your counter move to that is. If you're playing checkers and everyone else is playing chess, you're probably going to lose. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to have a very deep knowledge of whatever scheme you decide to go with. There's probably more on the field stuff, but I'm going to stop there, let Daniel let you talk a little bit, then we go to off the field stuff.
Yeah, I think, Coach, you hit a lot of really good ones, and that scheme one at the end, and kind of exactly what you said with, you can't just copy what other people are doing. Like, you're a guy who sells football, right? You have the gun T system out there. And I have talked to more coaches that use pieces of it or have integrated it into their offense than guys who are just trying to run it outright, which is probably how it should be. Yours evolves every year. So even once you've sold the product, like that's not the end of what you're doing with the gun T system. I think other people need to do the same thing, because your kids are going to be different. Your abilities to coach it are going to be different. You don't know what assistant coaches you have. So all those are skills. Not everyone has Bo Gould as their O-line coach. You know what I mean? Like, dude's good at what he does. We don't all have that. Some people really struggle to find an O-line coach. So you may have to change up what you're doing on the O-line. Your coaching might just be different. So not just copying someone else's playbook and pretending that you went out and got a system is great. That's a great piece of advice. And I think some people do that. I've talked to several coaches in the last year that their playbook is just a stack of plays that they've taken off Twitter or whatever, but it's not systemized. It's not put together so they can utilize them together and have, punches and counter punches and such. I think emotional intelligence it probably could go on all of these, but I think it's on the field is where we make a lot of mistakes, is just losing our cool, whether that's because things aren't going well. They're not going how we planned. Our game plan isn't working out like we thought. The other team just has our number that night, whatever it is. Refs, man, we could go on and on about refs because we keep losing them. They keep retiring, and there's nobody else putting on the stripes, right? But we're over there yelling and tearing them down, and can't do that, right? We have to have control of our emotions while we're on the sidelines, and understanding not just because, oh man, it might get me a flag, but the secondary and tertiary effects to just losing your cool on the sideline, whether it's guys are going to throw more flags, or they don't want to come ref your games anymore, or kids quit wanting to play for you, parents don't believe in you or trust you. A lot of that.
A lot of the deal with referees, I'm not going to step in here, is when you do that, you show every kid and every coach that it is now acceptable to do this at the referee. We're going to now blame our mistakes on an official. I saw this when my son was young. So when he was playing Pee-wee, at that level, the officials are not very good. It's just part of it.
They're learning. It's like we are, right?
We were losing the game by like 25 points. Like, we were getting beat because the other team was really good and we were not very good. And I remember that some call didn't go our way. And our fans and everybody let him know. And they were right. The call did not go our way. So we get in the car with my son. Well, we lost because the ref. I said, buddy, we lost by 30. The ref didn't miss tackles. The ref didn't. And so you got to be really careful. If you open that door, you are now opening the door for your kids to make excuses, and you don't want that.
Yeah, and we see it at every level of sports, right? We watch it on Saturdays when our favorite college team's playing. What does Twitter look like? Social media, both sides are just complaining about refs. We watched it in this, March Madness just ended. That's all that I saw on Twitter was people blaming the refs for, all the games, really. But Houston, mainly, I remember in that semifinals game when they, kind of a late lob down there, and I think they called over the back or something on the other team. But man, people have just gotten conditioned now to where if I can just blame someone else for my problems, if I can just blame the ref here, then my coach is okay and my players are okay, and we should have won it, guys. But those darn zebras, they got us. So, and I think that reaches out to a lot of other parts in life where we're blaming people just to make us feel better about the things we're doing. right? It's pretty easy to blame a third party or, and you kind of talked about this in your clinic this week, and I've believed in it in years, but every time we beat somebody, it's because they sucked. Or every time we win a game, it's like, well, it's because they sucked, right? Like we can never just be because we went out and did a good job with our game plan and executed. We always have to have an excuse for the others, the other team, especially when we lose. Let's jump into off the field stuff. So I know that I've made a ton of mistakes off the field, and we're going to get in later to why these mistakes are so critical, and I'll talk a little bit deeper about these. But I'd love to hear some of your off the field mistakes that you think that you've made or seen other coaches make.
Yeah, I tried to just kind of be as general as I could in this. Again, every coach makes these mistakes. They usually are harder than on the field. Like some guys are really good on the field. They really struggle off the field, but I do think they're kind of linked. I think the number one thing most coaches struggle with is understanding what motivates the people that are underneath them. I think that not having the relationship that's deep enough to know how to motivate different people. Everyone's motivated different. Some are motivated by the carrot. Some are motivated by the stick. Some are motivated, with encouraging words. Some are motivated because they need to be pushed. And finding what works for different people is going to allow you to impact different people. And I think it's really important that you don't stick them all in a box. See it all the time with even our own players, even my own children. I have a daughter and two sons. Middle son will run through a brick wall for you, but he's really good when you can make him mad. Like I know he doesn't like it, but when he's mad, I think he's unstoppable. The other two, if I make them mad, they're going to get ejected because they're like their dad. Like if I got too mad, I'm throwing a punch or an elbow or I'm losing my cool where I can't function. So you need to find what motivates not just your players, but also your coaches. And I'm not just talking about on the field. I'm talking about getting them to want to practice and work out and put the time in. What motivates them? And my coaching staff, which ones want to be pushed, which ones need to hear me compliment them more because that's what they need. So finding out what triggers different people. You can't do that if you don't have a real relationship, and you can't fake that. So you got to have a relationship where they know you care. Everyone needs to know that you care. Like everybody needs to know you're there for them more than just what they can do for you. And you show that by going to things they do that don't involve football. Like you show that by your time. Daniel and I are looking for guests. So I just hit up a coach on Twitter, friend of mine. He probably won't care if I say his name, Paul Simmons. He's at Harding University. I have a ton of respect for that guy. Asked him if he would come on our show. He respectfully said, "Hey, Coach, I really appreciate the offer. I declined. Trying to spend more time with my family. I think I need to spend more time there." Building those relationships with players is why Paul's got to where he's got.
Yeah,
that's why he's got to where he's got, because he understands what's important and how he can do things like that. And because I've got enough respect for Paul, I know where he's coming from. Like he's not. You can say no to people. You can push people in ways they don't want to be pushed if you've built a relationship there. If you have not, and you're just degrading kids and trying to push them, but you haven't shown them you're willing to show up to other things for them, they're going to not view that in a good light. It's not going to come from a good place. So I think that's important. Second thing I put on here, and this is a big one for a lot of head coaches, is not addressing the issue early on in an environment where it can be addressed in a healthy way. Everybody who's married knows what I'm about to say here. If you tell your wife in a really heated moment, you need to calm down, that's not going to go very well. But if you wait till everything has calmed down, and then you say, "Hey, you mind, let's talk about whatever happened so that we can fix it," you might have a chance. I'm not saying you will, but you might have a chance there to fix it. It's the same thing in any relationship. If you don't handle it in a calm environment and you wait and don't deal with it, what's going to happen is the pressure is going to build. Now you got to deal with a much bigger issue and maybe a much more public area, and that's not going to go very well. So those are the two biggest things I've got for off the field.
Yeah. I think the handling of administration or working with administration, we've talked about on the other podcast. Weirdly enough, we had this conversation not too long ago, just about building support. And if you aren't handling your things with them professionally, but then you expect a whole bunch of professional support, right? Or we talk about all the time, handling things in the classroom. If you aren't working with teachers, then you're going to catch a lot of blame when you're athletes, because it's always hey, coach, how come your football players are acting up in English class? But I can't go over there and say, how come your English students are acting up on the football field, right? If you aren't working hand in hand with those guys, it's going to hurt you somewhere down the line, whether it is a grade that you need, that it's a kid's just on the cusp of that failing, and maybe some extra tutoring or some extra help could have prevented them from missing out on a game. And now you're hurting on the football field because you wouldn't just work with teachers. Kind of goes back to what we talked about a minute ago, that extreme ownership, and you can't blame other people. It happens on the field and it happens off the field as well. So going through and just making sure you as a coach are working with everyone the same. Kenny, I love what you talk about is the, working with other multi-sport athletes, coaches. Like you can't expect to have your basketball coach lift in season if you aren't going to lift in season as a football coach, right? I've heard you say that on the podcast a couple times. Same thing. We have to work with these athletes. One, I think all students should be multi-sport athletes. I think we have to get away from the specialized. And some people are. I know there's some coaches out there that are still trying to be very picky with their kids and keep them in their sport year round. But I greatly believe that, you've got to work with those coaches. You have to be on common ground. What can I do to make you successful while you're in season, and vice versa? Maybe they can come help you. Maybe it's even just having an extra coach. Coaches are getting pretty thin these days. So maybe, hey, I know you're the basketball guy, but we could use a wide receivers coach. You can teach this tight end how to, get a jump ball or whatever. So I think that's big off the field as well. And then, we're going to get into the office in a minute, working more with assistant coaches. So I don't want to break into that too much. I think dealing with parents, of course, is a big mistake. And really, I believe that comes down to communication. If you have set standards to where they know what you were trying to do, okay, they know what to expect from you. Expectations is huge. We do it in the military all the time. We have what we call initial counselings. So if someone comes under my tutelage or someone joins my crew, I have to write on a piece of paper everything that's expected of them, everything they can expect out of me. And then that's kind of our guidelines. And we have to revisit that every 3 months. Every third month, I'm going back and saying, did you hold up your end of the deal? Did I hold up my end of the deal? Here's where you can improve. Here's where you're doing great. If we did that with parents and with our administration and all, it would be a much different environment if every 3 months we could look at it and go, hey, we just got done with Summer Pride and Jimmy missed 8 days, and he's telling me it's because the mom wouldn't bring him, right? Mom wouldn't get up and bring him in the mornings or in the evenings or whatever. The expectation was we were going to have these kids here this number of days. Maybe they do have a reason for it, but at least we discussed the expectations. But Kenny, you talked about it. When you just let the little things go on and on and on, then it becomes a bigger deal. So yeah, I don't know that you can
just mention what you said there, Daniel. Like, that's a hard conversation to have with a parent. If, hey, your kids missed this many days, we got to fix it. A harder conversation is you sat them a game and didn't even tell the parent. Now you got a really mad parent on you. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is it's going to be hard either way. Yeah. Knock it out early, because if you wait till later, that issue that might have been fixed is going to be a whole lot worse.
For sure. Let's jump into the in the office part here, Coach.
Yeah, and I want to kind of mention, you brought up multi-sport athletes and you brought up dealing with coaches, and in the office, I kind of feel this way too. I don't know, the guys that listen to this podcast, what your religious preference is, and that's obviously up to you. I personally feel like God sometimes puts you in places and has expectations for you. Like, I think the Bible verse, to whom much is given, much is expected, I feel like that needs to apply for everybody. And so if you're in a place where you're a head coach, I feel like you're called to make people better. Like, that's why you're doing what you're doing. It ain't for the money. We know that. So it's for something else.
Unless you're in Florida, I think those guys are about to get paid.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Or if you're an assistant coach, then your pool is smaller, but you still have a group of players that look up to you. Like, I feel like you're called to lead them and make them better people. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I feel like coaches' jobs are to make other people better. That's your job. And that can be hard. So now, with all that said, let's talk about being in the office. The first thing you got to do in the office is you've got to allow your assistant coaches to grow. The better they are, the better you're going to be. That's difficult in a couple circumstances. One, I don't know who's in your office. I don't know how willing they are to want to learn. But I feel like you've got to give them as many opportunities as you can to get better. And if that's not something they're on board with, give them a lot of opportunities to get off the train. It doesn't have to be an ugly opportunity. It just has to be, here's where we're moving. Here's my expectations. I will do all I can to help you reach this point. But if it's not a trip you want to go, then here's the stop. Like, here's where you get off. And no hard feelings. Not going to be mad at you. Not going to be petty like a 12-year-old. Hop off. So I think you've got to give them those chances. But you also have to give them tools to do that and give them opportunities to do that. Some of my biggest mistakes as a head coach was every decision came through me, and I probably paralyzed my assistants where they didn't know, am I allowed to make this decision? Am I allowed to do this? So everybody's coming to me and everything's bottlenecking, bottlenecking where it's all on me to get something done. That built my frustration because I expected them to do it, but we hadn't had that conversation. So having conversations of here's very clear what you're allowed to do, what you're expected to do, what I want you to do, and then trying to have very wide guide rails. It doesn't have to be exactly like me. Here's the guide rails. Here's our non-negotiables. Here's our guide rails. I think that's important. Just like with the players, I think building in relationships where they understand they can trust you and you have their best interest. Like, are you going to get mad if a coach interviews at another school where he can better his career? If the answer is yes, you don't really want what's best for that coach. You need to ask yourself that kind of stuff. And you need to have those conversations with those coaches and be okay with them. I'd rather have a dude who's going to work his butt off for 3 years and leave me and be a head coach than somebody who doesn't have that desire. It's just my mindset. I do think also inside the office, you got to be efficient with time. You got to be efficient with time. I can't tell you what your time needs to look like, but I can tell you no one wants to sit around when they're not accomplishing anything and just be away from what they could be doing. So every coach has to kind of pick what they think is efficient. But I think once you figure out here's the least amount of time we have to meet to be successful, that's your starting point. Then you try to cut more time off, not the opposite, where we're going to be here until things are done. Like, here's our list of things that have to get done. How can we do this as efficient as possible? And then I always announce to our coaches, hey, guys, our meeting's over. You're welcome to hang around and talk for a bit. But if you got to go somewhere, because coaches need to know that. A lot of times you're done meeting about what you want to meet about, and guys want to hang out, which is cool. But your young coaches kind of feel like if I leave now, am I going to be in trouble? Like, are we going to talk about something important here? No one really knows. You got to be official with that kind of stuff. Coach, looks like we got a couple more quotes from some live people, man. So that's good.
Yeah. I think, Kenny, what you said there about being efficient with time is huge for me. I'm big on don't waste people's time. I learned it in the military because I don't know if you know or not, military were real bad about being 15 minutes early to everything, which is fine until you have 4 levels of leadership and you're supposed to be 15 minutes early to everyone's thing. And now all of a sudden you're an hour early to do a thing, and then the building doesn't open until a certain time, right? So like, need to be in a building at 0800, better be there at 7:45. But then every level of leadership tacks on 15 minutes. Now it's 6:30 and you're in the parking lot for no reason at all. So being efficient with time is a huge one to me, and just don't waste people's time. Also, like what you said about the guide rails. it kind of goes into one of the things I was going to talk about, because I always want to take things off the head coach's plate. And I think that's a mistake that we assistant coaches make, is we don't take enough off the head coach's plate. We get stuck in this, like, I'm not doing things until I'm told. I want to be in the other world. And I know not all head coaches have assistants that you can do that with yet, and you need to develop them where you can. Kenny, you just talked about it. Like, sometimes you don't have that trust that they're going to do things the right way. And so you kind of do bottleneck yourself. But I think guys need to be more comfortable stepping out and just taking ownership of stuff and doing stuff. I mean, I've literally gone to a head coach that, and just been like, what can I do for you? Like, you're very busy. Give me your busy work. Give me your extra work, your tasks, the stuff that I can't have a news conference for you. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can't go talk to the principal for you. But all that paperwork stuff, I can do that. Kenny, I really like how you've got assistant coaches that are designing uniforms and putting schedules together and like all sorts of good stuff, right? Interviewed at a place this year that one of the assistant coaches was like in charge of getting all the refs set up for the games, scheduling buses. Like people are really starting to delegate. And I think that's important. As assistant coaches, we need to make sure that we're asking for those delegations. Like, give me more to do. Don't just sit at your desk and play on Twitter all day or whatever things are going on. The big one for me in the office is servant leadership. And I say in the office, this could kind of be with the kids as well. But we talk a lot about entitled kids who think that they have arrived because now they're the starting quarterback of their 2A high school team in Oklahoma or whatever, right? But as coaches, I feel like we have that same problem sometimes. We finally get a job, maybe it's a coordinator position, maybe it's a head coach position, and we forget what leadership really is. And maybe that goes way back to the head coach not developing leadership in his coaches. Maybe he doesn't know and he hasn't, sought out some leadership guidance. But forgetting that we are all servant leaders and that we're not here to tell necessarily kids what to do. Yes, we need to guide them in life, but we're here to prop them up, right? What is a coach? It's a thing that takes you from where you are to where you want to be, right? Man, that's such a good quote. And I can honestly, we could put that at the beginning of every episode, because it just to remind people what it is we're supposed to be doing in this life, in this career. But if you aren't doing that, if you aren't taking where the kids are and trying to get them to where they need to be, if you're just soaking up the glory and think that you're all about just making play calls on Friday nights, like that's not where we are. That is a huge mistake. And it doesn't matter what level of coach you are, whether you're a first-year guy or a 30-year head coach. Like, I think either way, that's a big mistake that we can make. Sweet. Let's get into part 2 here. Why are these mistakes so critical? So we just listed a whole bunch of them in multiple aspects of football, but why are they actually so critical?
Well, I mean, like anything, it's all about relationships, but in the coaching world, kind of keeping it specific there if we can. Usually this is a world there's a lot of pressure. 50% of the teams, they lose. So 50% of teams are unsuccessful every time you do something. That's a high pressure job. I don't know many other jobs where you say that half the time you're going to be unsuccessful in your job. Usually, unless you're a weatherman, you get fired for that kind of stuff. So it's a very difficult profession that brings a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes, depending on where you are in the country and what level you're coaching. There are a lot of people that are going to want you gone simply for a scoreboard on a Friday night or Saturday or whatever you're coaching. So because of that, the pressure ratchets up. Unfortunately, in our profession too, we have a lot of people that think they're coaches from the bleachers or behind the TV screen or somewhere else. So you have a lot of people that know enough about your sport, because it's a very popular sport, that they feel they could do a better job with a play call. They've not been around these kids except for 2 hours a week, but they think you should throw it more or run it more or tackle better or whatever it is. And guys, you watch college. Most of us that are coaches are also fans. We do it too. Like, I watch the Dolphins and I question some of the things they're doing. I'm pretty sure Mike McDaniel was pretty sharp, but I still question some things that they're doing. So it's part of the job. Like, that's part of it. Like, I don't like it, but it's part of what it is. You didn't decide to be a guy working at McDonald's But even there, I feel like they should put more mayonnaise on my burger. So there's always critics in everything, but in ours, we've unfortunately emboldened the idiots. Like we've emboldened people to take to social media or scream things out like it's an acceptable behavior. So it's unfortunate. It just is part of what it is. Well, with all of that being said, your mistakes are going to be magnified. So when you make a mistake on a Friday night, Saturday, whenever, it's going to be viral because people are recording things. It's going to be talked about by everybody. And I'm not just talking about play calls. Like that stuff happens. I'm talking about you lose your cool, you say the wrong thing, you put your hands on somebody, it's going to be out there. And so you've got to be very aware that there are a lot of eyeballs on you because of your position. You're also dealing generally with youth or children. So you have to understand that's another set of eyes that go on you. And we live in like a place where they'll sue you in a heartbeat. So just kind of understand there's a lot of different things you've got to navigate just to be able to coach. I think the other big part about being a coach is you don't get unlimited chances to fix it. You hope if you're in a relationship, you can make a bunch of mistakes and work through it with your spouse or with your family member or whoever you're with, because blood is thicker than water, and work through that. When you're a coach, you don't know how many you're going to get. You don't know how many chances you're going to get, how many opportunities you're going to get before you're going to be asked to go somewhere else. So it can be difficult. The final thing I'll put on here is a lot of times in our position, people that are closest to us are the most scared of telling us our issues, especially if you're a head coach or a coordinator, or you've come across in some way as you're the boss and you're not ever wrong, which you have to show confidence. You have to believe in yourself. Ultimately, you have to make decisions people are going to disagree with. You got to do all that stuff. But you cannot be so unapproachable that your closest allies, friends, coaches can't help you. And so I think that's the biggest thing I've had to struggle with is being to the point where, okay, I'm doing podcasts, I'm traveling the country, I'm coaching, whatever. That doesn't mean I know everything. Crap, that just means I'm just out there more. That's all that means. So I've got to have the door open where Bo Gould or Jason Weaver is on my staff or whoever is on my staff can come in here and say, hey, coach, here's some things we're struggling with right now as a program. And we try to use words, you're hearing me use them now, plural words. Like I'm not a big plural word person if you're referring to a he or a she, but I'm a big plural word person if you're talking about a program. Like it's not my program, it's not their program, it's not our players' program, it is our program. We want to be successful. And so I think you've got to have that mindset where guys can come help you. Because a lot of times you may be completely unaware this is going on. And you got to have assistant coaches that are going to help you in that world so you can fix some of these issues so they don't just sneak up on you. So I think to me, those are the biggest things when we make these bad mistakes and we hurt relationships and we hurt different things is now people are not going to be in our corner to want to help us out of those.
Yeah. I like what you said there with the people don't always tell you your issues. It's kind of, what do they call it? Like the brake light conundrum or something. There's some fancy term for it, but a lot of times people don't know their brake lights don't work because no one ever tells the people that their brake lights don't work, right? You can't see what you can't see. So if that's in your blind spot, an issue you have, and no one ever tells you because they don't feel comfortable talking to you about that stuff, then you'll just never know. And you'll go through life with your brake lights out and you have no idea, right? Until you get a ticket or something bad in life happens because you had an issue no one would tell you about. So foster an environment where people can come tell you what you're doing wrong. Goes back to emotional intelligence, right? You can't blow up on them just because they came and said, hey, man, here's the issue we're seeing. So, you got to be accepting of those things and then fix it or don't, right? At least you know your issues then. I think what makes these so critical is that football is a very small world. and it's getting smaller. Right. I just flew with you over to Boston this 2 weeks ago. We went to Milwaukee this past weekend. Long flights, 7-8 hour days flying, but it's not that big of a world, right? The coaches up there are just a very short hop away in the digital world. So if you do have these issues we're talking about, people are going to know about them rather quickly. So if you're trying to get another job, trying to get a second job, trying to move on from what you think is a problem location, but it can be spun, even skewed incorrectly, that you were the problem, you might have a hard time kind of moving on in life. So it's you have to take care of your reputation. Once again, I think it goes back to like having morals and standards, and as long as you can essentially, place all of your decisions under this, here's why I made these decisions, because I do have standards, I do have morals. Here's what I thought the right decision was, and we went with that, or whatever. Then I think you'll mostly be okay. But it is a very, very small world of coaches. We're not, we've had D1 head coaches on this podcast. The D1 coaches and youth coaches aren't that far separated. It's all kind of the same gig. You just, I guess, some of us getting paid a little more than the others. But I think that's what makes this so critical, is that just whatever you do is going to spread pretty quickly. Unfortunately, the bad does spread much quicker than the good. People don't want to spread the good because it doesn't give them a chance to tear you down, right? They don't want to be compared against all the good things that other guys are doing. So we really, unfortunately, live in that world where the bad is quickly shared. And I think it's because we don't have extreme ownership a lot of times, and we can kind of judge others so that we look better, I guess, if that makes sense. All right, Coach, let's jump in the last part here. We've made some mistakes in our career, whatever it is. Maybe it's we played the wrong guy at quarterback, or we lost our cool on the sidelines, or we had failed to communicate with administration, whatever those things are. How do we rebound from that? So if I'm a coach that's screwed up, what's my path forward?
Well, I want to give you a couple of insights I've learned as a young coach is don't try to hide it. Don't try to hide it. I remember calling a superintendent saying, hey, here's what happened at practice. Even if it really wasn't my fault, but here's exactly what happened at practice. So if you get a call from a parent, you're prepared, heads up. Like the last thing any administrator wants is some shocking thing happened. It might not even be a big deal, but they have a parent call them and they're the first one to tell them about it. So I think the big thing is get out in front quickly. Even if you think maybe no one will find out, and maybe you think even if it's a small thing, hey, there was a fight in the locker room, or hey, we had an assistant coach or a kid yell at an assistant coach. It's probably not going to be a big deal, but I'm always going to make the people above me aware of what happened and how we dealt with it. That might not even be your mistake, but if it is your mistake, definitely get out in front of it. Don't try to hide it. I think it's something we would tell our players. Don't try to hide something. Just tell us and we can help you. So I think that's important. You try to get out ahead of things. Second thing is I think you got to apologize. If you did something, you better apologize and take the blame. You want your kids to do that. You want your coaches to do that. I think last year I had to apologize to our team 4 or 5 times for mistakes that I made, whether that was a practice thing, a scheme thing, whether that was a relationship type thing, whether that was an anger type thing. I think there's power in doing that. Hey, guys, you know what? Here's what I did. I'm better than that. You deserve better than that. And we're going to be better than that. Guys, that's all you got to say, and move on. And I think it's important that we do that instead of trying to hide things or make these things worse. I think there's sometimes that you need to apologize, even if you're only partially to blame and the other person's much, much more in the blame. You're the head coach. And like Daniel mentioned, again, I don't know if you're the head coach or you're the coordinator, you're the adult in the room. It's your fault. And so either we've not worked through this enough, or we've not practiced this enough, or we've not whatever. But I can't stand it when a coach says, well, I've coached him. Well, he ain't doing it, so you didn't coach him. That's kind of the answer there. And I think that's the coach, you got to get out of that. Well, I've coached him up. No, clearly you haven't. because he isn't doing what you were trying to get him to do. So we are ultimately the ones that have to handle that stuff. And so you need to take the blame for that and apologize for it and figure it out. The second thing I've had on here was, again, you got to fix whatever relationship might have got hurt. You got to fix it. You got to go to it and be the one to work on it. You have to have enough relationships there where you can have difficult conversations. Like anybody can hand out ice cream. I think it was Nick Saban said, you want to make people happy, go sell ice cream. You want to be a coach. The biggest part of that job is having hard conversations. That's the biggest part of the job. And so you've got to have a relationship good enough where you are able to do that. I think that when we see guys like Nick Saban, we only see him on TV ripping and yelling at people. We don't see him meeting with those people, getting them ready to go to the NFL. We don't see him meeting with those people and trying to make them better people. That's what he's doing. But the ugly, hard part of it is him, making them work. And so I think you've got to have the relationships so that you can have the hard conversations and you can coach them hard. I think that's part of it. If you just want to make people happy, you're going to struggle in this world. That's not what this world is about. You can be happy Monday through Thursday, or you can be happy on Friday, but it's kind of hard to be happy on both. You got to kind of work so that you can be happy when you win the game, or you can have a lot of fun Monday through Thursday, and Friday probably won't go very well. And so you got to make sure your kids understand why you're pushing them to do what you're pushing them to do. I think you have to understand as a head coach, what is a non-negotiable? Like, what is something that we stand for and we're not going to move on? And it can't be more than about 3 or 4 things. I think that's where you get in a lot of trouble as a head coach, is either we don't have any non-negotiables that we're really, truly going to stand on. Maybe you're saying, well, our non-negotiables are going to be on time. Are you really going to sit your best player if he shows up 5 minutes late because his car broke down? Are you? So those are things you got. Is that a non-negotiable? Because once you say it is, it has to be. Yeah. Our non-negotiables are you're going to play hard if you play for us. That's a non-negotiable. Our non-negotiables are you're going to communicate with us if there's an issue with you being here. That's a non-negotiable. We're not going to non-negotiable things we can't go back on. But if you have 20 non-negotiables, you're creating issues you didn't have to create.
That's right.
You're creating issues you didn't have to create. You created that. Now you got to deal with the fallout of that. So I think understanding what's a mountain and what's a molehill is important. What are you going to stand on and die on? What are you going to stand for? And what are you going to say, you know what? We can work with this. And I think coaches have to decide what it is. Right now it's Twitter season and it's off season. So we have a lot of guys that are saying really big proclamations of what they're going to stand on. Let's see. Let's see how that plays out for them. Because I have found that generally the fewer the rules, the better it's going to go.
That's right.
The better it's going to go.
I think we have to change the quote of the week, Coach, to you can't be happy on Monday through Thursday and on Friday. I think
you like that one, huh?
Yeah. That's the new quote, because that's a big one. And I agree with not painting yourself in a corner, right? Your rules can't be so immense. If your rule book is thicker than your playbook, you've got problems, right? You've got to have kind of a few guidelines, and then we'll figure the rest of it out. So that's great points. I really don't have anything to add here on how to recover, Coach. You said it all. Step up, take ownership, even if it's not all your fault. That's what extreme ownership makes us do, right? We have to, even when none of it was my fault, when I had no finger in the pie whatsoever, I still have to take the blame if I'm in the position of authority that happened, right? And when we have people that don't do that is when you're probably getting fired anyway for some ridiculous stuff that you didn't even know was going on, as a failure to just simply be in charge of the locker room or whatever. So all great points. Let's get into our what not to do as a coach. What is today's lesson, Coach Simpson?
So what not to do as a coach, I don't think I put it in here, so we're going to come up with it here. So I think what not to do as a coach, again, I think is put yourself in a place where nobody feels they can talk to you. I think a lot of times we get burned as coaches with dealing with a lot of people. And so it's easier to be unapproachable. Like it's just easier to do that with your staff and with your players, because then you don't have to deal with issues. It's kind of easier. Like is it the ostriches that stick their head in the sand?
Yeah.
It's kind of like easier to be that. If you stick your head in the sand, you don't see it, you don't deal with it, you don't handle it. I think what you have to be is a guy that people feel they can come with you. Like they can come with you to whatever you're going to do. They can be part of what you're doing. They can come bring their problems to you. They can come bring their celebrations to you. One of my favorite things about coaching is watching our kids after they graduate reach out to me and be happy about, hey, coach, I'm going to be a lawyer. Hey, coach, I'm going to be a dad. Hey, coach, I just got this job. Like that to me shows, okay, we made a difference in this kid. And guys, I've made a ton of mistakes. There's a lot of kids that probably are out there going, that guy's a prick, because I messed up. But I think you want to have that where kids you want to be part of their life when they're older. One of my favorite pictures you see is John Wooden and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you see him coaching him, and then it flips it like 30 years later where he's on a cane and can barely move, and the players there helping him. That's our goal as coaches. Like that's our goal as coaches. What are you doing right now to set that up? Like if right now you are using players to accomplish your life goals, man, you're missing the big picture. You're really missing the big picture. I've got a lot of regrets as a coach, and 95% of them are those where I ran a kid off, I didn't treat a kid well, and I can't go back and fix that. Like it's gone now. What are you doing right now to reach your kids so that 20 years from now, they still want to be part of your life?
Yeah, it's so big when a kid, I've had, players, and all I've ever been is an assistant coach, but still players reach out and FaceTime and they're like, hey, look at this beautiful view. I'm at work and the sun came up this morning and I knew you would like it because we talked about enjoying the bigger things in life, right? Or stopping to smell the road, the finer things in life. We helped a kid out a few years ago and took him in for a little while to help. And he shot me pictures a few weeks ago of, hey, here's my son that was just born last night. Called me Coach Grandpa now because he's called me Coach Dad for years. So it just, it was the next step. And that's wonderful. There's nothing better as a coach. I don't have any rings. Maybe you guys have state championship rings, think that's cooler than that, but I don't think so. I think I've already won in the game of football with those little things like that. So
got a quote for you on that one too. I'm a big Cool Runnings person. So, Cool Runnings, the old Jamaican bobsled. One of my favorite movies. Made our kids watch it. It's John Candy. He's talking to one of his guys, and he's talking about gold medals. I kind of compare that to a ring. He says if your life is not enough without a gold medal, it's never going to be enough with a gold medal. Same thing with rings. Like rings are nice, and you win them, and that's our goal. There's nothing wrong with competing to win. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you're not enough without a state championship, winning one is not going to fill the void for you. It's not.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Coach. Let's close it out here, man. New books. I know you've been writing like crazy. You have got stuff going everywhere. What are the books that we can reach out to get? One's Play Caller's Guide, right? That's the most recent one to hit Amazon.
Yeah, Play Caller's Guide is out now. Of course, I've got 42 books now, so they're all over at fbcoachsimpson.com. Just go to the materials section over there. I hope we've created something that might be able to help somebody a little bit. So there's enough in there. We do have a new one coming out, the 3-4 Volume 2. This is going to be really, really cool. So if you're a 3-4 guy or a guy that just wants to be multiple, that book is mainly geared to how we've taken the 3-4 and become a lot more multiple with it.
That's awesome. I'm a huge multiple defense guy, just like offense. I can't imagine living in one formation for my entire existence. I think I would be bored of football too. So multiple is better. Just gives you more answers, I think. Sweet. Let's do some social media and get out of here, man. I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. There's some 100 and some odd people watching there right now. Thank you guys so much for jumping in today and watching this episode. These do go live in usually about 2 weeks. Except these will go on to the podcast. So if you need to go back and catch any of it, by all means, you can reach out there. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. I have a website, chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. I'm still figuring out the website world. Whatever reason, it's the one thing that I just have been not great at my entire career. And then patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consultings, where you can reach out if you need some help doing anything, whether that's graphics, making a cool schedule graphic for your social media. Maybe it's getting social media started. Maybe it's how to put together a web page or some type of document so that you can get your kids recruited, right? Just as a recruitment information sheet. Whatever it is that you need, I can help you out over at patreon.com. And then, of course, my YouTube at Coach Chambo OK. Coach Simpson, where are you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter/X, FBCoachSimpson.com is the website, FBCoachSimpson@gmail.com is my email. You see, Michael, you're on their Facebook. You're probably one of the groups, or on Daniel's page. We got a ton of Facebook groups. So Shotgun Wing T, Offensive Coordinator Academy, Defensive Coordinator Academy, Head Coach Academy. All of those are free Facebook groups with a ton of great content with guys sharing information. Heavily encourage you to be part of those.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Coach. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter/X. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you always know when the new episodes are out. It's time to start leaving reviews. So if you haven't left us a review, we'd love 5 stars. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That's the big 2 places that most downloads happens. We'd love a review there. 5 stars or bust. Not really. Whatever you think we deserve. If it's less than that, holler at us, see if we can fix some things. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.